Get ready to apply that tanning oil because you're at the card pool. I'm your host, Stu Galetta.
And I'm Kyle Robertson.
And today we're taking our first look at the hidden gems of Scars of Mirrodin.
This is, of course, part one of our multi-part set review of Scars of Mirrodin. You can also look forward to some of our future segments where we'll discuss more hidden gems, the money cards of Scars of Mirrodin, and our overall look at the total set. But without further ado, let's start this review.
Let's indeed, Kyle. Let's start off with one of your cards at number 10.
All right, let's do it. Number 10 on our list here is Exsanguinate. For me, at least, this is a black sorcery that costs X and a double black. And it says, simply, each opponent loses X life. You then gain life equal to the life lost in this way. I wanted to start out with Exsanguinate because it's not necessarily a flashy card, or, I don't know, maybe even some people's definition of a fun card, but it does get the job done. This is a very solid way, in fact, probably one of Black's best ways to actually just flat out win the game on the spot with one card.
100%.
Definitely, yeah, right? And this is also a fixed life gain effect, which means the more people it hurts, the more life you gain. You have the potential to like Grey Merchant of Asphodel, kill multiple people at the same time.
100%. And again, because this was made before Commander and really multiplayer formats, you just get a huge advantage because it affects everyone on the board. And this sees home in a lot of decks too in Commander, especially more along the lines of, forget the name of the guild, but the black and white ones.
Orzhov.
Yeah, tons of those kinds of commanders really love this card, just as like you said, a win con. And we see that with our kind of commanders like, oh gosh, what do you think of off the top of your head?
Karlov.
Karlov's a good one. Then we also have our friends Kambal and
Eiley. I think that's how you say that. I don't know, but all three of them are just super good homes for this card. Absolutely.
Totally. Well, actually, because mainly they're all kind of focused on life gaining or using life in some sort of aspect for it. So this way you're able to go ahead and make it so that you can, again, get a synergy and a strategy that works exactly for your deck. You get something on your opponents, and it's just oppressive to a whole other level.
Absolutely, and I think that Black did have ways before this card came out to sort of win the game, you know, obviously. I feel like all the colors more or less do, but I think this was probably one of the only cards I can remember in printed history that was just one of those win the game on the spot kind of things when you play it. And with cards that mana ramp in Black, it's no brainer to just finish people off with this card.
Super easy, especially like Cabal Coffers and stuff like that, in which you get so much mana ridiculously quick. And even with the, the slightly worse Cabal Coffers card coming out in...
the Cabal Stronghold, yeah. But it's still pretty good, though.
It's not as good, but it's decent.
I think it's close. But anyway, let's move on to your cards, Stu. And actually, this also has to do with gaining life, doesn't it?
It does, actually. So my number 10 is going to a card called Vigil for the Lost. It is a 4-drop enchantment that is 3 generic and a white. And it reads, whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard from battlefield, you may pay X. And if you do, you gain X life. So the reason I really do enjoy this card is because it does something continuously. And typically whenever you have a board wipe that goes off, you don't get any benefits out of it unless like the creature has some sort of die effect or it's comboing out with something else.
Right.
So being able to have something that's not affected from a board wipe to give you more added value is good, especially if you have just extra mana just sitting there. And the later the game goes, I mean, think about it. How easy is that to have happen? You have 1 or 2 lands that you don't even have a card in your hand. Like, all right, I'm losing this card. Let me just get 2 life. I'm kind of hurting right now. It gives you some sort of a play. Also works with the throne potentially as well.
It does, but on that same topic, wouldn't you rather be drawing cards in that case than gaining life? I don't know.
Depends, because, it also depends on what you have going on in white. Because, again, there are commanders that use a lot of life gaining.
Right, pretty much the ones we just mentioned.
Yeah, Kaya? How do you say her name again?
Oh, Kaya, the Ghost Assassin.
Kaya, the Ghost Assassin? Yeah, let's bring a picture of her up again real fast. So, yeah, for example here, it works phenomenally well with her effect because for the fact of you're gaining life, you just get more bonus on bonus. And again, your commander is going to come out, it's going to die. So being able to get more value from your commander, later game, early game, if you're running low, you have something out there. Again, it's just something that sits. Now, it's like the opposite you kind of see with Heuristic Study for the fact that you will, your opponents have to pay for it, but you can also get the added value as well. Mm-hmm. And this also works for some really good cards that, like, you already see, like the Soul Sisters, for example.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, they're just constantly gaining you life. So, if you're in a life gain-focused deck, this would help. Again, if these creatures die, go ahead. plow all your mana into it, and you'll be totally fine. And it works with pretty much any strategy.
I don't know. I mean, this card is interesting, I grant you, but I don't love the fact that it doesn't really inherently give you any more board presence, and it also inherently doesn't really do anything unless creatures are dying, neither of which are things I really want to have happening at any point in the game if I can avoid it.
But think about it. White has like Wrath of God and all this other stuff where it's constantly blowing up the field. Like the strongest part about White is its board control just in the creature basis. Right. So if you're willing to like, all right, I got this token army, I got this dude, I got my commander, but their board is way more oppressive. Like, I don't know, any scary card out there, they could have Steel Hellkite who's going to blow up all your permanents, for example. You do a Wrath of God, you do a Day of Judgment. All right, well, you lose your stuff, but you're getting more added value if you need it.
I guess so, but I feel like you'd be hard-pressed to have enough mana untapped that something like this actually helps you. And also, I don't love the fact that it just kind of comes out. It doesn't really do anything until creatures start dying. It doesn't add anything to your board.
All right, you're right for what it is, but there's usually a lot of cards where it's like one-shot effects, where it's like target player gains 3 life, target player gains 4 life, right? So I'd rather have something a little bit more constant along those lines, and that's what this card is.
Maybe. I don't know. I probably wouldn't play it because all it does really is gain life. But who knows? Maybe it's a fit in some decks out there.
All right. Either way, we'll go on to number 9, and this one is your card.
All right, and it's another enchantment this time in blue. We're looking at number 9 on my list here, which is Inexorable Tide. It says it costs 3 colorless, 2 blue, so 5 mana total. Again, an enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. And now, for those of you who don't remember exactly what proliferate is you choose any number of permanents or players with counters on them and give each another permanent counter of that kind. This right here is one of the most powerful proliferate cards that are out there. Whoa. And this is especially good in Infect decks, because when every spell you cast triggers proliferate, those poison counters are going to add up really, really quickly.
That's totally fair, but I think probably the strongest card would be Atraxa voice, Praetor's Voice.
Well, I did say one of, but yeah, Atraxa is certainly probably the best one. If not, definitely the best one.
But this is totally serviceable.
Yeah, this is very, very 100%. Strong.
This
in
works
an Atraxa deck.
So well with it, and you're right for this card to be warrant what it does, because it does. It makes it so it's like you get more value on you casting more stuff. But it's kind of in the same paradox as my card. It doesn't do anything as soon as it sits. 5 mana, you're not going to play it when you have only 5 mana open. You're going to wait till you have 6 mana so you can go ahead and brainstorm or ponder, play any little 1-drops. This way you can get the added bonus off
That's
of it.
True, but I think this is much more likely to win you the game, whereas your card may prolong the game a little bit, but this will just end it. I mean, look at some cards that this combo is with. How about the obvious proliferate suspects, like Darksteel Reactor or Magistrate's Scepter? And you're right, this card probably is, strictly speaking, outclassed by Atraxa herself, but an obvious inclusion in an Atraxa deck. It's pretty much broken for all the general reasons proliferate cards are stupidly broken, so there you go. Yeah, Not much to say about that.
I 100% agree with you, and I mean, it also can work with other kinds of counters, like, I mean, the list goes on and on. You got Wither, Infect. I mean, experience counters too possibly could even work.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you can make it so instead of killing your opponents, you're just getting a better gain. And there's tons of stuff that works with, like, when this gets a counter, something ridiculous. Like, draw a card, get mana, yada, yada. So, yeah, this card is good. I won't fight you on that. But I'm just saying it's got the same dilemma as my card, Cobb. Just throwing it out there.
Maybe. Perhaps. I think this one's a little bit better, though.
Well, moving on to my number 9, and this one is going to be an artifact now. It's called Throne of Geth. It costs 2 mana and is an artifact, and it has a tap effect to sacrifice an artifact and proliferate. So it's kind of the same exact thing as Kyle's card, except this one is more artifact-centric. So this is very good because every deck uses artifacts. Whether they're big or small, they all have sack outlets, they all can be reoccurred. There's so many options that you have with this. And again, any player can use it. And naming a couple cards off the top of my head that these really work with, you have something like Scrap Trawler, Memnarch, or even Feldon, who goes ahead and creates an artifact token of a creature. So being able to have a quick sack outlet on these cards to be like, hey, you know, let me get more bang for my buck. If you're using Infect, like we said, or any other type of counters, you now get that advantage, and you are sitting pretty. For only 2 mana, that's pretty nice.
Oh, no doubt. Just by itself, paying 2 mana to basically proliferate is a pretty solid deal, and the fact that this can be reused over and over again makes it really good. I mean, it's not quite as good as an Inexorable Tide, because that just triggers every time you cast a spell, and for this, you have to actually invest other things into it, and you don't get as much out of it, but still, very interesting, and sacrifice artifact outlets are a little bit chancier because they don't fit in every single deck, but this could be a pretty good fit in a lot of places, actually.
Oh, and the fact that it's colorless is huge, because pretty much all colors tie with artifacts, excluding maybe green, because green...
But still, even that's debatable these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very hard to splash something in. You got Simic, you got BAMP. All those can work with artifacts very easily. So this is something, again, it's a one-shot effect per turn, but you have artifact creatures out there, so you go ahead, you block with something, sacrifice it, bang for your buck. So, yeah, I like it. I think it's something I've never really seen used in Commander, and I'd like to see it more on the field.
Yeah, it's a generic, low-cost proliferate option. Again, I don't think it's as good as the last card we talked about, but still, a lot lower cost, comes out a lot earlier. Could be useful.
Yeah, especially if you got that Soul Ring that's not doing anything turn 1. This could be pretty simple to go with.
Nice follow-up, definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go on to your next card, Kyle.
Okay, and we're actually not going to talk about a proliferate card this time. Number 8, for me, but to a rather simple green creature called Copperhorn Scout. This is my number 8 here. It's a 1/1 for 1 green, and it's an elf scout creature. Whenever Copperhorn Scout attacks, untap each other creature you control. This seems kind of odd for green, because green doesn't normally see this kind of effect, and you might wonder at first, why is this on your Hidden Gems list? Why is this card so good? Well, especially as a Commander player like myself, look at some of the cool pairings you can do with this card. First of all, just for starters, it comes out early, it's a relevant creature type, elves are always pretty darn good, and it basically gives all your other creatures vigilance every time it attacks. That's a great lord for 1 mana.
I wouldn't say vigilance, but I mean...
It's basically the same thing. They untap.
It's a pseudo-vigilance, sure.
Yeah, regardless. I think that's pretty much what it is.
Maybe. I don't know. I would maybe like a card with vigilance more than that. But
well, it eliminates green's biggest weakness, which is having to tap out most of the time in order to attack.
No, see, green does have vigilance-like stuff, but I agree with you, the untapping does matter, because there are tons of cards that love to untap, because, again, you go ahead and use some sort of effect, you probably need a blocker, or if you do swing out with something big, like a Crater Hoof Behemoth, Army, something like that, and you're not killing everyone, you're going to need some more protection. So, I mean, if you think of like Yisan, the Wandering Bard, for example.
Yep, and Ovia Prashiri, Sage Lifecrafter from Kaladesh. Both of these are decks that I've played Copperhorn Scout in, and it is just always a great, great feeling when this card comes out on turn 1, because you know things are just going to get ridiculous after that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, again, it's a little bit of a weak creature. It's vulnerable to, like, again, anything that creatures are vulnerable for. You're not going to block with this thing. So when it does attack, it's going to die, most likely to not. Because, again, you're just going to go ahead and attack and get the effect. But this is good, because with cards that we see, like Wirewood Symbiote, that are creature-based focused, like it only works with elves, this doesn't. Even though this is an elf, this can go into any deck that's using green. It can get the untap effect that you really want, and there's no minuses truly on that, except it's just a little weak. That's about it.
Even in a token deck like Rise the Redeemed, for example, which I know you love, Stu, I think this would be
First example
an amazing.
Off my head,
this would be an amazing addition, I think, because not only does it utilize the same tap untap sort of utility, but tapping out to attack with all your creature tokens suddenly doesn't seem so bad anymore.
Again, the pseudo vigilance like that is really, really good.
And for 1 mana, that is one heck of a card right there.
But it doesn't do anything to turn its out. It needs haste, which green has a little bit of problems with. A little bit. I mean, this is red, 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome card. It can go out instantly, work with so many synergies. Again, if you're using red, totally nullifies all that. But good card, decent find. I've seen this one played a handful of times. You've played it against me, too. So it's a great card, and awareness of that is not bad at all.
Has some drawbacks, but for a common, you really can't ask for much more than this.
Nope. But moving on to my number 8, actually, and we're going to go back into an artifact-focused thing, we're talking about a card called Clone Shell. This is a 5-drop shapeshifter creature with a 2/2 body. It has imprint, and when this enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 cards of your library. Exile one of them and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Next, when this card is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, turn the exile card face up, and if it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield under your control. So the reason I like this is because you're able to get free stuff for really not much of a cost. This is a creature that is going to go ahead and die for the most part. But again, it's an artifact. Artifacts are recurable. Creatures are recurable in the right colors. And again, you can just start populating a field very, very easily with this. And again, since it isn't cards in your hand, you'll always have a target, provided you're using a very heavy creature-based strategy.
Right, and you know where I love to use this card and have used it before?
Tell me.
Grenzo, Dungeon Warden. This is an amazing card to have in an original Grenzo deck because you can pretty much, assuming that you're running the traditional black-red kind of thing, and even some odder cards that can keep putting it back on the bottom of your deck, like Grenzo likes to do.
Yep.
This card is amazingly abusable and can become very, very good
100%.
Very quickly.
Yeah, and that's a great example, too, because this way it works in 2 scenarios for you in which it can stay out, it can fix the deck, synergies are crazy with this. And again, it's a 5-drop for a 2/2 body. It's pretty fair. And again, it doesn't have to die on its own accord. It can die to a combo, be sacked out with Throne of Geth or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also very similar to a card that I like to think of as Master Transmuter, in the fact that you're bringing something out for free, way cheaper. I mean, free's always cheaper if you think about it. But again, this is without that price tag that you see on Master Transmuter, and this isn't a tap effect. The only thing that matters is if the top 4 cards have a creature. So inherently, if you are using a deck that can stack that, I mean, any of the tutors, if you have, I don't know, Worldly Tutor, that works. If you have Divining Top, that works. And there's tons of commanders that love this as well. Like, if you go into, like, Kiki Jiki, I mean, you go ahead and you make it so that you can just get the token copy out, and then that's going to die, and then you get the effect. Then you got Duretti, who just is totally artifact-centered. This enters, you do the effect, and you swap it out with, like, the plus, get another artifact from the grave, or bring it back, recurred, or even Alesha, because it's a 2/2 body.
I like that one the best. That's probably the best place to use this, because it uses inherently a lot of creatures.
Oh, yeah. So, and you can flood the field. Now, those are usually lower-costed creatures, but still, free stuff, populating your field, and again, if this dies, board wipe just hit, you are now no longer vulnerable because you have a creature out there. So
yeah, and we're just thinking small with this too. We're thinking like play small utility creatures. What if you hit something really dumb like a Blightsteel Colossus with this?
It's not limited to what it could possibly get. It just has to be a creature. But I mean, you can also get lucky with some stuff like Dryad Arbor, which is a land creature. So if you're using stuff like that, it won't whiff for you. But again, I've never seen this card. It's decently costed, and I mean, right colors, you can ramp. Right tribe, it can ramp. Right artifacts, it works everywhere pretty much. It's incredible.
Well, I wouldn't play it in, every single deck ever, but there are certain decks where it makes sense, and in those kind of decks, it certainly really pulls its own weight, for sure.
And this is tutorable in a variety of ways. Just fabricate, get an artifact, this works. So I mean, we can go on and on about this, but let's move on to your next card,
I'd love to see more people playing that card. This next card, though, I see plenty of people playing because it is very, very good. Number 7 on my list here is, of course, the green spell we all know and love, Genesis Wave. Not the Star Trek one, the Magic one. Yeah, now this is a green sorcery that costs X and then triple green. And that hefty price tag comes with a pretty big effect, too. You reveal the top X cards of your deck, and then you can put any number of permanent cards that cost converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then you put all the cards that were revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. I'm looking at this pretty much as, in the context of Scars of Mirrodin, Green's version of Exsanguinate, because it's basically a play this card for enough mana, you win the game. There's really nothing anyone can do about it.
As a win con, sure, that totally makes sense. And this is hefty as a win con.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, obviously, you can play it for a little mana, and maybe you'll get a little benefit out of it, but most of the time, you see people going for this as a game ender, and it is, because pretty much with the right amount of mana fixing, you can play your entire deck just with this card alone.
Well, you can, but again, you have to have a lot of mana for that. You need to be able to make sure that you have the stuff that you need, because if this whiffs, it feels bad. Like, I mean, it is permanent, so you can get lands, but if you're using a lot of instants and sorceries, Storm decks are never going to want to run this, obviously.
No way. It has to be a very heavy concentration of permanence, a lot like a Primal Surge-based sort of deck, but it's very easy to ramp into this. It's one of Green's more dependable ways to win the game, and also the best thing about this is that, remember, it says permanence, not non-land permanents, you can play lands that you get with this.
Yeah.
And they're untapped. How great is that?
Yeah, you get the ramp on the ramp into the ramp, going up a ramp to go down the ramp.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's really great. And again, if you aren't using creature-based strategies, if you like enchantments or artifacts,
Still works.
Yep, it still goes around it. So it's nifty in what it can do. I typically only see it focused on creatures to win.
Yeah.
But it can go into other kinds of niche decks that like Planeswalkers, for example. So you could use this as a Super Friends kind of means, because I mean, they're permanents.
Yeah, Green has a long history of X spells like Chord of Calling and Green Sun Zenith being like really, really, really good. And this is no exception. It's a game ender, make no mistake.
Yeah, this is the tier 3 level on that one. So yeah, 100%. But moving away from green into blue, your favorite color, I might regret this later, but my number 7 is going to a card called Dissipation Field.
Ugh, I hate this one.
I'm glad you do, because I love it. It costs 4 mana. It's a double generic and double blue enchantment that reads, whenever a permanent deals damage to you, return it to its owner's hand. So this is a really interesting card for the fact that it gives you protection after you've already been hurt. So it makes it so that it hurts your opponents for going after you. If they have a big creature out, they're going to be losing it. They have to spend their next turn to recast it. So it takes away a board presence that they've been trying to obtain. And for tokens, I mean, they don't exist anymore. So they're kind of scared about it, but it does work with your own stuff, which can be good and can be bad. And I'm talking about lands. And this kind of card right here, like a Sulphurous Spring.
Oh, Painlands?
Painlands.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, so like,
That's
for example,
horrible.
if you don't have a land drop before your turn, all right, tap this for mana, make it hurt you, you take the 1 damage, goes to your hand, go back, replay it for a land for turn, you've inherently netted your mana cap by 1 for that turn. And that's just very, very simple for what it can do.
I mean, I was thinking more along the lines of, hurting other people with this card, because, for example, if you're trying to use something like Valakut the Molten Pinnacle to burn out your opponent, it's going to get bounced right back to your hand after the damage is done. So you better win, or you're just going to be really sad after that.
But I also like it for a political tool, and the reason being, I know these don't always affect, but it's a thing that I love going back to, is ETBs. So if you have a creature that comes into play and it gets some sort of effect, if you don't have a creature that has it, but your opponent does, but doesn't have a means to bounce or flicker or whatever that creature, you can now give them an outlet for it, provided you're going to take some damage. So like creatures that we see like Acidic Slime or Woodfall Primus, they are very strong for how versatile they are at destroying target. Like, I mean, any card that you really don't like, hey, attack me, I'll be willing to take the hit, but we need to remove this. This creature needs to go. This land needs to go. Whatever has to go. You can have that option. And for a 4-drop enchantment, yeah, it doesn't do anything the turn it comes out, but it makes a huge warning sign go up to your opponents to be like, don't come at me. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, and the worst part is it's like No Mercy in Black, where once they do damage to you, it basically, annihilates whatever you just did damage to them with. This is a little less permanent, but still, it's kind of the same principle, and the reason I do kind of like it, I mean, I hate playing against this card, but I respect the fact that it's good. The fact is because it affects all permanent types, not just creatures. So if you're using an enchantment or an artifact, for example, to do damage to people, it's going to keep getting bounced every turn. That's going to get annoying.
And sometimes you can't control the effect, so it's a triggered effect that they just have to go for. But again, it works for different strategies too. If you're trying to make somebody lose their hand, they play stuff that they need, but they hurt you with it goes back, make them discard it, you've permanently solved that. If you go ahead and play stuff from people's hands, totally works the same way as well.
Yeah, send triplets, hello.
Yeah, knock knock, ladies. That's your card for that right there. It's just such card advantage for you. But moving away from my card and into your number 6.
All right, well, you went mean with that one. I'm going to have to go meaner.
What?
My number 6 card is Grafted Exoskeleton. Oh, yes. This is a artifact, of course. It's an equipment artifact, to be more specific. It costs 4 to play and 2 to equip. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and gains Infect. Watch out. Whenever Grafted Exoskeleton becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. And just to refresh everyone's memory, Infect means that the creature it's equipped to deals combat damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of the poison counters. And if you have 10 or more poison counters, you lose the game.
Stronger version of poison and a stronger version of wither combined into one effect.
Absolutely. Infect, I don't know how I feel about Infect.
Well, you obviously like it if you chose this card. So
I don't know.
You can't play devil's advocate on this. Like, I don't know about it. You totally
I don't know.
chose this.
I don't know about Infect. I'm not sure how I like the fact that it exists in the game at all, but if it does, I might as well use it. And Grafted Exoskeleton is one of the better ways to use it. That's for sure.
I think, all right, there's two main ways that I like to use Infect. So I agree, Grafted Exoskeleton is a fairer way. It's more of a gentleman's version, being like, well, I'm coming at you, but not with a full unstoppable Infect army. Blightsteel Colossus is the other card I can think of. That pretty much is the other version of a win con, just for the fact that it gets so much poison damage through in one hit. If it's not blocked, they're dead. If it blocks just a little bit, they're still dead. Or it's coming at somebody else, or you're putting a few counters on them to proliferate later. It's such... I mean, this and that, I think, are probably the two best Infect cards standalone that would be great in any deck.
I would agree, especially because it's an artifact. It can be played in any deck, and it's a very rude equipment that gives Voltron decks, for example, a sure way to win. Most decks, a powerful weapon in their arsenal, for sure. And remember, Infect damage applies to any sort of damage from the creature, so something that simply taps for damage, for example, that turns into Infect damage, and whoa, that's scary.
Yeah, actually, we'll bring up Jaya. They made the Planeswalker, but the old school creature has the effect to go ahead and tap and deal damage. That now is Infect. We don't have a picture of her, so you can definitely look up Jaya Ballard later on your own. But that is a great combo, an easy way to win, and yeah, good luck having a solution for that.
And look, the whole unequip thing, and you have to kill the creature, that I've never ever seen that matter once.
Well,
so.
Alright, protection from artifacts, if you animate the artifact so it is a creature, yes, that happens. Doesn't happen that often, but like a Sidri deck in which you can animate any creature, or Karn, Silver Golem, or anything else like that, yes, that will remove it. It's a kill spell inherently at that point, so it has its plays, but I mean, it needs that kind of drawback. It's not a huge one, but for how strong it is, it needs it.
The reason I like Infect, the reason
you
I like
just said
it...
you didn't like it.
Well, the reason I do like it is because colorless options like this in Blightsteel Colossus give any deck an automatic win con, basically.
100%.
And that's nice to have, rather than just sitting there and dirtling around with some kind of infinite combo. These are a fairer way to win, I suppose.
Yeah, it's again, like you said, everyone can use this, and everyone should use this if they have a creature-based strategy and they're looking for a win con that's standalone.
Definitely. But speaking of which, I think you have an equipment up next too, don't you?
I do, and this is going to be the last card for this list. And yes, it is an equipment, Kyle. It's called Infiltrator's Lens. It costs 1 generic, and it's an equipment like we've said. And it costs 1 to equip, and it reads, whenever equipped creature becomes blocked by a creature, you may draw 2 cards. So this is a very good, very strong, very serviceable, very low-casted equipment that can be easy card advantage. And like typically the one that you see in every deck is Skull Clamp.
Let's not go comparing this to Skull Clamp.
Well, I'm bringing up Skull Clamp for a quick example. So for reason being, it has the same cost for both equipping and to come out on the field, right? So it means it has the same plays of being tutorable as a 1-drop equipment and all that other good stuff. And you also do draw 2 cards. The only difference is that the creature isn't dying. It has to be blocked. But the thing I like about this a lot is because sometimes you don't want to give someone the card advantage. So if you go ahead and you make it so you're coming in with something, they'll be like, it's you know what, I'll take the 1 damage and you won't draw 2 cards. But if you go ahead and you put on something more scary, they're like, alright, take 2 cards, I'm blocking this because I don't want to lose right now, or I don't want to lose this creature or some combo piece. So it makes it so it has a little bit of a ruse to it, but again, not the same as Skull Clamp, but it's definitely serviceable like Skull Clamp is.
You got that right. It's no Skull Clamp, that's for sure. I don't know, I mean, I've seen people play this card before, but it just always seems so low impact to me. Like, drawing 2 cards right off of that trigger is pretty sweet. I mean, it's much better than just drawing 1 card, but I don't really ever see this working the way you want it to. I really don't.
Well, again, if you have unblockable creatures and like some sort of like the blue god Thassa, right?
Yeah.
Alright, that's easy to go through. They're already unblocked, so inherently this wouldn't go in that deck. But any other deck that's Voltron, they're going to be blocked. So, or a Blightsteel, going to be blocked. And again, this is also tutorable with Trinket Mage.
Yes, the only benefit here I can see that you can find it so easily.
Well, yeah, it's tutorable. It can go in any deck. If you're using more stuff and you need card advantage, this is something that gives it to you in all colors. Red doesn't really draw cards. Green doesn't really draw cards. I mean, you have to go through hoops in order to do this. This is an option. I'm just saying it's an option.
I guess so. I'm not a huge fan of this because whenever you give your opponent a choice they're always going to pick the one that's less beneficial to you, so I would rarely ever let somebody willingly draw cards
Well,
off
it's
this.
not always
no
the
way.
opponent. 4-player game, you got your politics. If you need an answer and you have somebody who can block something that's not scary, they'll do it to help you out because, like, all right, I need to draw into a board wipe. I need something to help you or this or that. Like, it can work. It's not the best option. I'm just saying it can work.
It's interesting, I suppose. But
And equipments can be tutored so easily in a variety of colors.
It's true, and white especially.
And like Saram, Saram deck.
Yeah.
This would be totally serviceable in that deck.
Possibly.
So that is going to be our pool time for today. And if you like the cards that we had in our pool, be sure to let us know how you think and where they go on Magic itself.
Absolutely, and you can let us know either in the comments down below, or you can reach out to us on social media at our Reddit, Twitter, and Facebook pages, all at the handle MTG The Card Pool. And of course, stay tuned for next week, where we'll be looking at some more hidden gems from Scars of Mirrodin. But until then, I'm Kyle Robertson.
And I'm Stu Galetta.
And we'll see you next time at the Card Pool.